Welcome, Matt.
Good evening, everyone.
We're going to start shortly. We're just waiting for the heads up from IT that we're being live streamed, then we'll start the meeting. But as you saw on the agenda, you're the only one on, so there's no other delegations. And if you're okay, I'm going to skip.
Recording in progress.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Grimsby. I'm going to first start by introducing the members of the committee and staff. So in attendance this evening are committee members Dylan Bailey. I can just get you to wave and turn your screen on. Video on. Waiting for Dylan to come. Dylan, you can see the screen there. Danielle Beck. Hi, Danielle. Adam Mottershead. Hi, Adam. We have Herb Nobes, Herb, and myself, Kevin Antonitis, as chair. And staff here this evening, we have Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning, and Michaela Bray, our Secretary Treasurer. So I'm just going to make an announcement regarding live streaming. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. If you're okay, I'm just going to skip the overview of meeting procedures. Everybody's aware of the procedures. You've been in front of us, I think, the last 6 months a few times, Matt. If you're okay with that, you're aware of how it works. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does any member of the committee have a pecuniary interest in the matters before us this evening? No, and I have none as well. We don't have any withdrawal. We only have one application this evening, as mentioned. So first off is the minutes from the previous meeting held on June 21st, 2022. Members have had a chance to review the minutes from the previous meeting. Were there any questions or comments regarding the minutes? If not, then could I have a mover and a seconder regarding that approval of the minutes? You just raise your hand, Danielle, and the seconder, Dylan. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. So as mentioned, we have one application before us this evening. We have application B01-22, 260 and 270 Hunter Road, which has been in front of us, I believe, 2 times already. And this is the 3rd time now that we've got full committee members present, or all of us present. I'm going to turn it over to Michaela to go through the application and the report for PowerPoint. Michaela.
Thank you, Kevin. So the only application is B01-22, 260 and 270 Hunter Road. To note, it was approved back in February 2022, but this is being brought back because there was a change in the description to Part 7. So a brief overview, the application is to sever lands known as 270 Hunter Road, which would be Part 6, Parts 8 to 11 inclusive, and to retain the lands known as 260 Hunter Road, Parts 1 to 5 inclusive, and Part 7. And it would be subject to the easements described as follows. Part 1's 260 Hunter would be the retained parcel. Part 2 is 260 subject to easements in favor of 270 for storm services. Part 3, 260, subject to easements in favor of 270 for storm and sanitary. Part 4 is 260, subject to easements in favor of 270 for access, storm, and sanitary. Part 5 is 260, subjects to easements in favor of 270 for storm services. Part 6 is from 1 meter below grade and above. It's owned by 270, subject to an easement in favor of 260 for access and storm services. And below grade, it's 260 with support and easements in favor of 270 for storm and water services, utilities, access, and maintenance. Part 7, this is the one that was changed just due to a small error in the initial application. So it's 260 subject to easements in favor of 270 for storm services, utilities, and maintenance. Part 8, from 1 meter below grade and above, it's owned by 270 subject to easements in favor of 270 for storm storm services, maintenance, access, and exclusive use parking. And below grade, it's owned by 260 with support and easements in favor of 270 for water, utilities, maintenance, and access. Part 9 is 270 Hunter Road, which is the severed parcel. Part 10 is 270, subject to an easement in favor of 260 for storm services. And Part 11 is 270, subject to an easement in favor of 260 for storm services and access. Here's the site plan that was submitted with the application. It's the same one that was circulated on the notice. Aerial photography showing the neighborhood context. And for correspondence, I'll just pull that up. It's the same as we've heard before. So just to recap that, from planning, they don't support the application as proposed as it does not fully comply with the town's official plan requirements for site plan approval. Public Works, they have no comments on the correction to the description of Part 7, but they object the proposal in private easements and offer some recommendations. And the recommendations are the same as we discussed back in February. From the Conservation Authority, no concerns. From Enbridge, they have no objections. They reserve the right to amend development conditions. And it's the responsibility of the applicant to verify existing gas servicing does not encroach on more than one property when subdividing or severing the existing land parcel. And Grimsby Power, no concerns. Heritage, no concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. So the correction here was the one you highlighted. Is that what was being corrected? The Part 7
Yes,
you had
correct.
highlighted? Yeah.
Part 7.
All right. Matt, did you wish to explain or go into further detail on the reason for the application, et cetera? Respond to the reports?
Certainly. And again, good evening, everyone. It's Matt Johnston, a registered professional planner with Urban Solutions here in Hamilton. And I'm here again today, sort of coming hat in hand. This is something we've been at for quite a while. As we know, we did approve this application back in February of this year through a mistake in our office. Part 7 was incorrectly noted, and that had a ripple effect on the decision. However, when we were all here discussing the merit of the application, everyone agreed that we understood the intentions of Part 7 and its ultimate ownership. So what we're here today to do is really just verify the intent of that February decision. We had a healthy debate. We talked about the merits, and the committee voted to support the approval, and it was granted. Subsequently, after we recognized the error, we asked to come back to committee. And when we did come back, we didn't have quite the full complement of the members, and there was an impasse between the two votes. And what I'd like to really ask everyone to bear in mind is that it's just that verifying what the intent of that decision was. A vote in support of the application tonight is not changing any position that you may have established in the past. It's simply verifying, yes, the intent was for Part 7 to be handled in such a way. And I'm asking you to look at it from that lens this evening. I do have a brief, or I should say a more detailed presentation that I can get into if it's the will of the committee. But again, I'm trying not to necessarily debate the merit of the application again. I'm asking you to really look at it. I think when you really see the sequence of events here, it's the fair thing to do to view it from that perspective, verifying the intent of that February decision. It's the appropriate thing to do. Rehashing the debate, we could go down that road, but I'd like to think that we can really see this for what it is, and I'd ask you to look at it from that lens. So perhaps I open it, if there's additional questions, I could open up and share my screen and walk you through a presentation. I'm sort of at the will of the committee at this point.
Thanks, Matt. Dylan, you have a question?
Just through you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I went back to the minutes of the February meeting, and part 7 seems to be the same to me. So I'm not understanding why this is coming back if we're reaffirming a decision we've already made. Or sorry, maybe we didn't make it on that. I guess I'm just, I know that there was a confusion that there was a 2-2 vote and we needed to come back, but I thought, has that still not been resolved?
It was a 3-2 vote in favor at the time. Subsequently, it was discovered there was a typo on the forms. And so there's some numbers transposed, and I'll have Matt maybe explain and just focus on that. That brought it back. Staff felt it was necessary to come back to the committee. At that time, there was only 4 members. So it was a split vote, 2-2, which is a non-decision. As you know, a motion has to be approved by a majority of the members. So that was a non-decision. Basically, it parked it and then returned here back this evening with the 5. So hopefully we can resolve it this evening with 5 members, an odd number. So I'll have Matt, maybe to your first point, I'll have Matt explain that.
And just I guess for clarity is, since that 2-2 vote, is 7 changing again, or we're just reaffirming everything and 7 is a sticking point? Or that was the second time the issue was the second time number 7 came back, is that right?
Matt, or Michaela, Matt first, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, if I could, as per the initial submission on our cover letter and application form and the corresponding staff report and the decision from February, part 7 was indicated to be owned as part of 270 Hunter Road. So it's a very subtle tweak. The ultimate intent was to have part 7 owned by 260 Hunter, which is the southerly lands. And it's my request, and like I said, when we debated the merits of the proposal, the ultimate ownership of part 7 being under 260 Hunter Road was certainly understood as part of the discussion. Nobody's questioning that, but it was through an error in our office that indicated the ownership of part 7 to be under 270. So it's what I'm asking you to do tonight is to verify the intent of the February decision, where part 7 would be ultimately owned by 260 Hunter Road.
And that's, just for clarification, that's where the sign is located.
That's correct.
Yeah. Does that answer where's Dylan? Does that answer your question, Dylan?
Sorry, I'm just going back. I'm just looking at what was in the minutes versus what's proposed now, and the wording is exactly the same. So that's why I'm not understanding.
And that's where I'll ask Michaela to answer that one. Michaela, what brought this back? Maybe if you can explain it.
Through the chair, back in February, it was noted that part 7 was part of 260. No, part of 270, which was incorrect. And then we brought it back in February with the correct wording that it was part of 260, which is what Matt had explained. So basically it's the same application that we voted on, that there was a non-decision back in May. So I can go back and look at the February wording of the resolution, but it should be that part 7 was part of 270 Hunter Road when it should have been part of 260.
And I agree with Michaela on that explanation.
It could just be, perhaps it's semantics. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the minutes, and they look to me like the exact same, the document, like the statement, and maybe I'm missing the general sense here, but it looks the same. But I don't want to delay the conversation. So please proceed.
Sure, I'm looking at both notices, and the notices are different from the first meeting to this one. So it does look like it has changed and it's switched addresses.
Yeah, it was an ownership question, right? It was the 260 and 270 were reversed, and that's what was corrected on the second go around.
but not in the February minutes. The statement today and the statement in the February minutes are the same. So that's why I'm,
Oh, okay.
Through the chair, I don't see that it's the same. I can see in the February minutes that it's part 7 was belonging to 270, which was incorrect.
So it was a question of the ownership, Dylan, not, and the discussion all revolved around the correct interpretation of how we see it. It was just written down wrong on the ownership, on the describing what part belonged to, or the intent of what part would belong to what address was incorrect. But the general discussion and debate at the time, we are all understanding that the sign would remain with 260, but it was not written that way in the notice. So that had to be corrected, came back, and that's when the tie vote happened, or a non-decision. And so now we're back again with the corrected ownership. So part 7 belonging to 260. I just want to make sure you're clear, you understand what kind of the reason why it's back. So it's correcting that and or the incorrect ownership in the first one, just for the part 7 to sign up in the corner. Adam, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of sticking to the procedural questions here, I guess. To our Assistant Secretary Treasurer, has a certificate of consent been issued on this application?
Who
Through the chair. Sorry, Kevin?
Sorry, just to Michaela. You're directing that to Michaela?
Yes, correct.
For the February decision, I would have to go back and look and see if one ended up being issued, but there wouldn't have been one once it's been brought back. I'll take a look.
Yeah, just because.
Sorry, we didn't do anything to clear those conditions, so there was no ultimate reference plan put forward. So there should be no issuance of a consent certificate for that February decision.
Because that was caught before the certificate was, or while it was being created, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, through the chair, I think we might have sent a letter saying that there were no appeals, but nothing happened after that as the mistake was caught. So nothing was submitted to our office or surveyor.
Okay, thank you.
So theoretically, I guess your question, Adam, is, was that decision valid? It just had the wrong ownership on. What's the cause and effect of that, I guess? Is that what you're getting at?
No, because if the certificate had been issued, actually, under the Planning Act, we can't amend a decision. It would have to be, I guess, canceled, and then perhaps a new application come forward.
Yeah, but I don't think it got that far. Okay. Any other questions from the committee members? Sorry, I have to scroll through because not everybody's showing here. I mean, as Matt mentioned, we had a pretty vigorous debate on the first one. Did anybody wish to hear his presentation again? Because he did ask that, if anybody would find that useful. No? I see he's shaking, so. If not, then do we have a motion on this application? Herb?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to move that the application be approved, be granted. It is appropriate for the development of the property. It meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, and so I move that it be granted.
Seconder on that? Dylan? Any further discussion on this? Danielle?
Can we have clarification if it's going to be approved with or without the conditions as per the resolution, Mr. Chair?
So I'm going to say that, Herb, I'm assuming I can read the whole thing if you'd like, but I'm assuming it's as per the motion that was circulated to the committee. So that's as described in the planning report and the conditions. Are you suggesting the conditions as follows? I'll just read the condition part then, if that's okay, Danielle. The applicant provide the Secretary Treasurer with deeds and triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel, a registerable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for the issuance of the certificate of consent, 2, that the final certification fee payable to the town of Grimsby be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, and that all conditions of consent be fulfilled within 1 year from the date of notice of the decision pursuant to subsection 5341 of the Planning Act, failing which this consent shall be deemed to be refused. And 4, subsection 3 or 5 of section 50 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, shall apply to any subsequent conveyance or transaction involving the severed land. Herb, I'm assuming that was how it was written on this motion.
Yes,
Okay,
with those conditions.
right. So noted. Somebody else had their hand up. I think Adam.
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this motion as presented with the conditions? All those in favor say aye, or perhaps raise your hand is going to be easier. Opposed, if any? Was carried. Okay, there is a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. And that is all we have this evening, I believe. So unless anybody else has any miscellaneous or other items, we are adjourned. Thank you for attending for the third time, Matt.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night. Anything else, Michaela? No?
No, good night, everyone.
That's it. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Record.